was a pizza delivery driver for 8 months here in Midtown Detroit. It felt like years. I've had some real terrible jobs since I dropped out of college, but being a delivery driver was by far the worst thing I've ever had to do for money. It goes way beyond just being talked to like a moron by some heavy-set Armenian shop owner, or being screwed out of a tip by some white trash bimbo who lies about the lateness of her order. I've been robbed, beaten up, and almost killed while on the job. The first time was when I was delivering to an apartment building over near 8 Mile. I had just gotten out of my car and was grabbing the pies from the back seat when I saw this group of teenagers approaching my car. They start making jokes about how beat up my old Taurus was, and I'd be lying if I said they had no grounds to. That thing was a complete rust box. They're talking trash, I'm giving as good as I get, and it seems like it's just a bit of fun. That's when I feel one of their hands in my pockets, trying to grab the folded stack of dollar bills I use for change. I'm mad. But when I turn, one of the kids has this huge knife out, telling me to hand over the cash. I just kind of reacted. I hurled the only thing I had available to me right at the knife wielder. Now, I didn't expect this, but as I throw the pizza box, the thing just sort of falls apart in midair, freeing the pie up to land right on the kid's face. I always knew our shop had a reputation for delivering piping hot pizza. I guess that's why it's so busy. But the way that kid was screaming when practically molten hot cheese was getting stuck to his thieving face, wow, it was ear-splitting. I saw that same kid a few days later. He had a bandage over the side of his face the pizza hit, and I'd be lying if that didn't make me smile. It wasn't even the robberies that were the worst, though, because a few years back, something started happening to pizza delivery drivers here in Midtown that's like something out of a horror film. A big part of gang initiations around here is taking a potential member out to jump someone. But since they were doing this in public, the cops got wise to it pretty quickly. After trios of scumbag Cripper blood clones were getting locked up on the daily, the gangsters decided to smarten up a little. God knows whose idea it was, but some way, somehow, someone must have had the idea to ambush delivery drivers after luring them to abandoned spots throughout the city. The first I heard of this was a guy from another shop getting a call to a quiet, mostly derelict neighborhood on the edge of town. He'd arrived at this big red brick house, walked up to the front steps, then had apparently seen a handwritten sign on the door that read something like, "Doorbell broken, come around back, tip in it for you." Tip. That's the magic word that must have done the trick. Pizza box in hand, the guy walks in the backyard of this big old house where he sees some kid, a pistol in his hand. No one knows just what went down, but it ended with the delivery driver being shot in the head and neck before their assailant stole nothing more than $20 in change in single bills. His funeral was about a month ago now. A few of the drivers at my shop stopped by to pay their respects. But I didn't. I kind of felt like I'd be imposing. Besides, I never mentioned it to anyone, but I always thought that the guy was an idiot. No one deserves to lose their life over a delivery job, but this was right in the middle of this whole gang initiation thing happening. Who drives out to an abandoned neighborhood after getting an order of any topping, any soda? After that, the shop I was delivering for started a blacklist of neighborhoods that were forbidden to delivery after dark. But even that didn't keep us entirely safe. A buddy of mine at the same shop managed to get himself jacked in the middle of the day, delivering to a fancy residential neighborhood. Some gang members had busted into a house whose owners were on vacation. He rings the doorbell, they pull him inside, then proceed to rob him of the maximum $20 in change. When he tells them truthfully that was all he had on him, they beat him half to death before stealing his car. He was in the hospital for a week while his jaw was wired shut. And that leads me to the last delivery I ever drove for Armin, the Armenian pizza place. The fancy townhouse beating my buddy suffered had me paranoid. Borrowing a .44 revolver from my buddy started me thinking that maybe I should just go ahead and quit. It was surreal in the extreme, being given a little rundown of how to load and fire the thing, where best to shoot someone if you didn't want to outright end their life. It felt like I was enlisting in the army or something. I had to remind myself this was a freaking pizza delivery job. So I rock up to the address I've been given, the 2 pizzas on the back seat, when I notice it's really quiet. There's a public park on the other side of the street, and thanks to a row of bushes, I can't see anything approaching from that angle. I get a bad feeling, like a really bad feeling, and take out the .44 from my glove box. That's when I see this dude emerge from the bushes on the other side of the street, and he's wearing one of those clown masks. This was right when all those attention-starved idiots were putting on clown masks and scaring people for the sake of getting that perfect viral video. But I didn't take the chance. I just started tapping on the glass with the revolver in hand, looking over at the guy with the gun plainly in view. He stops, takes one look at the revolver, and then reaches behind his back into his waistband. I just remember cracking the window and shouting, "Don't do it, man. Don't do it. You don't want to get shot." I'm not a particularly brave guy, but I don't know. The thought of ending up with a wired jaw, the thought of that poor kid who went out to work one night and never came home. I actually think I was ready to end this guy in the clown mask. He just wasn't a real person to me. He was a living embodiment of everything I hated about living in this freaking city. I kept the gun pointed at him as I drove away, the 2 pizzas still sitting in the back seat. I quit the moment I arrived at the shop. Armin didn't even act surprised when I handed him back my uniform and collected the money I was owed for the shift. It's been a while since I quit that job, but I still think about it most days. It's in the news all the time. Some driver getting robbed or beat or worse. Everyone seems terrified of automation right now, but it can't come soon enough for some jobs. Jobs that just aren't worth losing your life over.